What's going on, everybody? Sean Ross here, and welcome back, guys, to another My Hero Academia chapter review. And because we will not be getting a new chapter this week, I have been looking at the prequel one-shot chapters that will be tying into the upcoming My Hero Academia movie, The Two Heroes. I already did my live reaction to the Volume 0 prequel chapter, All Might Rising. It was very fun doing that video, so if you guys have not seen that yet, you guys can find a link to that video right up here. But for this video, I'm going to be talking about the Melissa chapter that gives us a little bit more of an introduction to the new characters that we will be introduced to in the Two Heroes movie with Melissa and David Shields. And if any of you are at all curious about these new characters, you want to learn more about them, you want to learn about their connection with All Might and their role that they might be playing in the upcoming movie, then I would definitely recommend that you guys read this chapter before you get a chance to see the Two Heroes movie. I will leave a link down in the description below that you guys can read this chapter for yourself, and you can check out the characters of Melissa and David and see how cool they actually are. Just from me reading this chapter, I really do like these characters, and it really makes me hope that later on down the road, Horikoshi does incorporate Melissa and David into the actual storyline of the manga. I know the movie is technically canon, but because they're calling it canon, that means that there could be a chance later on down the road that we could see Melissa and David pop up in the manga, and that would be really cool to see. But with all that out of the way, let's dive in and talk about this one-shot chapter, which is entitled, There's Always Someone Out There Who's Someone Else's Hero. And this title really does go to encapsulate the overall message of this one-shot chapter, but it also goes to explain very well the journey that we go on with Melissa's character, because as we come to find out, Melissa is quirkless. She has no superpowers. She is growing up in a superhuman society without any superpowers. Very much like Deku at the very beginning of My Hero Academia. And much like Deku, Melissa is also beginning to ask the questions, what is a hero? What does it mean to be a hero? And can I, a quirkless individual, become a hero in my own right? And by going on this journey, Melissa gets the answers to those questions. She ends up being inspired to follow in her father David's footsteps. And then once meeting All Might, she ends up finding out that the greatest hero, All Might himself, also has people that he looks up to and calls his heroes, which is very cool to see by the ending of this chapter, and to see how this kind of inspires Melissa to become a hero in her own right. But as you read this chapter, you begin to see the strong similarities between Melissa and Deku, the fact that they are quirkless, they are trying to become heroes in their own right, and how a chance meeting with All Might ends up changing the course of their life for the better. There are differences, of course, in their upbringings. You get to see how people treated Melissa, even though they knew that she was quirkless, compared to how Deku was treated by Bakugo and his friends. But there were just certain panels throughout this one shot that just reminded me of certain panels back in chapter 1 and 2 at the very beginning of My Hero Academia. Even at the very beginning of this chapter, we open up with the shot of David and Melissa finding out that Melissa is quirkless at the hospital, much like a shot we saw in chapter 1 when Deku got the tragic news that he too was in fact quirkless. But the big difference between Melissa and Deku within this scenario is that Melissa ends up handling this news a hell of a lot better than Deku did all the way back in chapter 1. Deku was utterly devastated when he got the news that he was going to be quirkless for the rest of his life. But here, Melissa has the opposite reaction, to where she remains calm and very mature for her age within this situation, because she wants to remain strong for her father. And what she ends up doing, she just ends up looking at her dad, smiling and saying, "It's okay, Papa, thank you." And she ends up doing this because in her mind, this is something a hero would say within this situation. I am sure that she is devastated and upset on the inside, but she wants to remain strong for her father. And that's just really cool to see at the very beginning of this chapter. But even if Melissa was able to inherit a quirk, let's say her father's quirk, I don't really think it would have really made much of a difference, because David's quirk is bendy fingers. He basically has more flexible fingers than the average person, which is basically equivalent of being quirkless. So there's not really a situation here. We don't really know the mother's quirk. We don't really get to see the mother within this one shot. So maybe the absence of the mother will be explained in the My Hero Academia movie. But just getting to see Melissa handling this news rather well was great to see at the start of this chapter, and a really big difference going from Melissa and Deku. But then we get to move on from seeing Melissa's reaction to this news to seeing how other people end up reacting to Melissa being quirkless. But this right here is another big difference in how Melissa and Deku were both treated by others once they found out that these two were quirkless. Because in Melissa's case, we come to see how other people really didn't treat her that much differently. All of her other friends still looked at her and still wanted to play and interact with her. They did not ostracize her, look down upon her. They tried to incorporate her in all the games that they tried to play, and they even came to compromises to where Melissa would end up telling them, well, why don't you guys act as the heroes and I can be the person that you guys can try to save. I may be quirkless, but we can still have fun and interact together. And that was just really nice to see that she did not have to suffer the same fate that Deku did. And it makes a very big contrast going from this, getting to see Melissa interacting with her friends and how Deku interacted with Bakugo and his friends. Oh man, Bakugo was an utter ass to Deku in the early days. When they were 4 years old, man, Deku was so resilient, and it makes me look to this situation with Melissa and wonder how she could have handled someone like Bakugo treating her the way that he treated Deku. I don't know how resilient Melissa would have been in actually pursuing her dream of still trying to become a hero, even though she was quirkless. A little food for thought just wondering about that. But even though Melissa was still able to interact with her friends, she still looked around and saw all of these unique people with all of these abilities, one after the other, and yet there was her, just a normal person, did not have a power, and even though like she was able to hide it, she was still upset inside, and it kind of made her start to ask the questions, can I still become a hero even though I was quirkless? But then she also begins to look at her father David and starts to wonder, did my dad ever want to pursue the life of being a hero? But as Melissa is asking her father all of these questions on being a hero, we have the #1 hero himself step in within this section. All Might comes in to visit, and I love the interactions that we have between David and All Might, but I really like the interactions between Melissa and All Might. They are very fun and cute moments, and there's even a nice meta joke thrown in there to where Melissa is looking at All Might and saying, why are you drawn so differently? I like the fact that that is thrown right in there, but it's during this section Melissa gets to see a pro hero, the #1 pro hero from Japan, coming to her father for assistance. And this is where we come to learn the role that David has, because based on his quirk, David knew he cannot be a hero on the front lines going out there and fighting villains. The best that he can do is be a good support hero, and that is exactly who he is. He is the personal support hero to All Might. He is the one that makes the gadgets, and he is even the one that has made the iconic costume that we have seen All Might wear. We've seen it on Volume 1 of My Hero Academia, and we even saw All Might wearing it during his fight with All for One. So just with these tie-ins alone, I really do hope that we get to see more of David and Melissa in the actual manga for My Hero Academia. But having All Might here, Melissa has all these questions just running through her mind, and she wants to ask All Might if she too, even though she is quirkless, can become a hero. But then we have an emergency pop up right out of the blue where this gigantic tornado comes out of nowhere, and that just happens when you live in America. But in typical All Might fashion, he walks into this situation without even breaking a sweat, and he ends up saving all of these people from this natural disaster. He jumps into the fray, he saves a few people from falling debris, and then in one single punch, he just blows away this entire tornado. And this was honestly a walk in the park for All Might. But then everyone that was watching this, that he saved, they are cheering for All Might. They are applauding him for what he just did. And then we get to see Melissa running up and acting a little bit like a fangirl, basically telling All Might, you were so cool, you were amazing, you blew that away with one punch. But then she pauses for a very brief moment and then begins to ask the big question that has been on her mind. And it's the same question that Deku asked All Might back in chapter 1. I'm quirkless and have no power. Is there any way that I too can also become a hero? And Melissa gets the positive response within this chapter, unlike Deku back in chapter 1 when he first asked All Might, because back in that chapter, that is when All Might was kind of at his lowest point and he was already suffering from the injury that he got from All for One. In this one shot, All Might has not gone up against All for One yet. This is still the positive All Might, which is why Melissa gets the positive response. And I like the response that All Might ends up giving him. It leads into a funny moment to where he's basically telling her, look at the suit that I am wearing. What do you see? And she kind of turns away blushing. It's like, it fits you rather well. And you just see the muscular physique of All Might. But then he begins to tell her, this is the suit that your dad made. And if you look at it right now, for me going up against this tornado, there's not a single scratch on it. I trust your father in making this stuff because when I go into battle, I have faith that I'm able to walk out unscathed based on your father's technology. And because he makes this suit for me, your father is my hero. But Melissa is staring back at All Might and her father, and she's thinking to herself, wait a minute, my dad, my father is your hero? And David walks up to Melissa and just explains to her, I may be a support hero, I don't fight on the front lines like All Might, but I provide my support by creating these technologies, these inventions, and these suits, and I give them to these heroes, and by doing that, I'm a hero in my own right. I am a hero for other heroes. And this kind of puts the light bulb, the aha moment within Melissa to where now she sees the path right in front of her. She knows what she has to do, become a support hero like her father, and that is how she can make a difference even though she is quirkless. And then we have my favorite panel of this entire one shot where it's basically a ray of sunshine, getting to see Melissa smiling as she's looking at the bright future now ahead of her. And now she knows what she needs to do in order to become a support hero. She needs to buckle down, needs to put all the work in. And then we get to the last page where there's another big similarity between Deku and Melissa to where we see Melissa charting down all the sketches. She's showing David and she's putting in the work. But if you go back to chapter 2, there's kind of like a very similar panel shot of Deku doing the same thing during his 10 months of training with All Might for the All-American Dream Plan. There are some differences, but you can see the similarities within that, and I just like getting to see that, and just getting to see how the bright future in front of Melissa and the positivity coming for her. But of course, we ended off with the big contradiction going from Melissa to Deku to where he does not have that positivity. Right now, he is running for his life away from Bakugo, and just getting to see those similarities and differences between these two quirkless individuals, and just getting to see the path that they went down. Melissa was not going to be inheriting any quirks, but she found a way for her to make a difference and to pursue her dream, even though she is quirkless in a world with superpowers. And then we also have the main story with Izuku Midoriya, Deku, going down the path of inheriting One for All and trying to make that power his own. And this is just a really cool one-shot to where I just love these new characters now of Melissa and David. And I really do hope that we get to see them at some point within the actual manga. That would be really cool to see. And with this one-shot and then the All Might Rising, I am very excited for once this movie, The Two Heroes, the first movie for My Hero Academia, does eventually drop in the US. I cannot wait to see it. But yeah, that right there is my review on the Melissa one-shot for My Hero Academia. But now I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on this one-shot. What did you like about this chapter? What are your thoughts on the new characters of Melissa and David? And are you looking forward to seeing them in the new upcoming movie? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you guys want to talk more about My Hero Academia, just in general, outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on Twitter. A link to my Twitter account can be found in the description down below. But that's going to do for me here, guys. So until my next My Hero Academia video is up on my channel, I'll talk to you guys later. But remember, guys, go beyond, plus ultra.